You guys, I do this every single year and I need to stop. Every year, as you know, you probably have this similar feeling. I get so excited to start our seeds indoors. I get that itch to start gardening near the end of the winter, and it starts to become time to plant onions and peppers. And those things need a lot of time. And then I think, oh, well, I'm starting my peppers, I should also start tomatoes. They need a long time too. Well, as you can see, it always turns out to be a bad idea. So now my tomatoes are too big. Some are even starting to get flowers. So, and if I were to get them in a bigger pot, it would probably be fine. So I might end up doing that. I have a giant tomato in a tiny little soil block. And so there's just not enough room in that little block for them to have enough space to grow their roots. I might pot these up, or I might just get them used to being outside and then plant them a little bit before the last frost. And then if we do get a last frost, I'll probably cover them. So we'll see what I end up doing. So while I think about that, I wanted to go over the pros and cons of my seed starting station with you. So if you do want to start something like this, you'll have a better idea of what's good about it and what I don't like about it. So the pros, I have soil blocks in capillary mats on this seed starting station, and that has been a dream as far as watering goes. And it's good for me because I'm not the best at being a consistent waterer, so there's usually some water in there. This is the first year that I've done grow lights. In the past, I've always had my plants growing in light from a window, and it's been like a southwest window, and it got maybe four-ish, 5-ish hours of sunlight, which is okay, but definitely got some leggy plants. And I would twist the plants around just to get the stems to not totally bend over, and that helped a lot. And it worked. I had a great success with that, but I wanted to try something more consistent like grow lights on a timer this year. And I will say it was a lot easier to do it that way. The con is it's more expensive of a setup than just sticking plants in front of your window. So you can fit a lot of space in the seed starting station, but I need more space. I'm realizing that the garden that we're setting up is way bigger than what this seed starting station can provide. So I might start a cold frame outdoors and get some of my cold hardy crops growing outside in the future, but that's not really a con with the station itself. It's just that I'm gonna probably need more space. And yeah, like I said, the other con is just the upfront cost. It's more expensive. So the question is, can you plant like really tall like tomato plants? These I wouldn't say are leggy, but they're not like the strong, like some of them have some pretty strong stems, but not all of them. And what I've done in the past, because I've had even worse tomatoes than this, like I've started them in January way too early. But what you can do is you can remove the lower leaves and you can plant the tomato plant laying horizontally and then just have the tip poking out of the ground. And all the little fuzzy things on a tomato plant can actually turn into roots. So that's something fun and special with a tomato plant. Then you can start your tomatoes with only like 10 inches sticking out of the ground instead of 2 feet. Something else I wanted to say is you don't need a fancy seed starting station to start your own seeds indoors. My first indoor seed starting experience is a joke. I had this tiny little carton. I had like 6 plants. We were living in North Carolina and we had a little balcony, and I wanted to grow a garden. We didn't get enough sun, so I put tinfoil on this cardboard box and wrapped it around my plants so they could reflect the light, and it actually helped. I even built a mini greenhouse for my outdoor cold hardy greens, and we had lettuce for most of the year just from my apartment balcony. And let me tell you, I learned so much from that experience, and I'm so glad that I didn't let my limitations of my tiny apartment or my fear of failures to stop me, because I use those skills that I learned then even today, and I'm building on those skills. So don't wait for the perfect setup, because it never really happens. I have this seed starting station that I've been wanting for a while, and I still want more. It never ends. So work with what you have. I am starting to harden off my kale, spinach, and broccoli and a few other things from our seed starting station so that I can get them ready to get in the ground as soon as we get to move into our house. Hardening off is where you get your indoor plants used to being outside. And I'm only gonna have them out here for maybe an hour this first day, especially because it's a little bit windy and I don't want the wind to whip the plants around too much and end up killing them. You do have to be mindful of your weather, what your day is gonna be like when you're hardening off seeds, because if it is too cold or windy, or if it's gonna snow or heavy rain, you're not gonna wanna put these things outside. You might need to skip that day. In addition to hardening off some of my plants, I also needed to prep my seed potatoes for planting in a few weeks.
Those potatoes?
So I've cut these ones already. I had actually tried cutting these potatoes a few days ago, but my kids ended up needing me. But the goal for cutting seed potatoes is to leave them with at least 2 eyes on the potato, then letting them sit and scab over before planting.
So cut where?
So do you see the sprouts poking out?
Yeah,
I want to have at least 2 sprouts showing. So do you see how that's a sprout? So you want to make sure you have, they call them eyes, I guess. So we have 2 eyes here, so a good spot would be probably to cut it.
I want to cut that one.
Okay, help me. Grab it with, oh, you're left-handed, so no. Okay, keep your hand out of the way. So we want to make sure we have those 2 sprouts showing. So now we can plant it. You want the sprouts to be shooting out. But we'll let those, does this one have a couple? Yep. So let's do the next one. Some might say that they can't garden because they don't have time or because they have young kids. But I'm gardening because I have young kids. They are so curious and really thrive in the garden. It provides more teaching opportunities than I could even mention. And the best part is that it gets them outside and connecting with nature. Another thing that I was taught was if you have a potato that's really small, is that you should not cut it, even if it has a lot of eyes that you can use to grow. And that is because it will just like shrivel up and potentially just die. So leave your smaller potatoes uncut. But I'm not a pro, but that's the method I'm working with. Just got all of the potatoes cut up right here. 2 years ago, I planted potatoes and I did not cut them up. And I remember my grandma growing up, we lived next door to her, and she would cut her potatoes before planting them. So we're gonna try that this year and see how we like it. I do remember when I planted potatoes whole in the ground, I found several rotten ones, almost like it was just too much potato in the ground. So I don't know if that's because I planted them whole or not. I've only planted potatoes twice in my life, so we're just experimenting here. But I think they look really good. I'm excited with the ones we got. These are the Yukon Golds, and they have actually started sprouting already, so. Brought out all the plants. Here's all our sad, too big tomatoes. I think they'll be okay, honestly. And then I have tons of flowers. The flowers are these little things right here. There are some basil and dill and cilantro. So flowers and herbs, I guess. Flowers. And then peppers and more flowers. So I forgot to start some of these pepper seeds, but these are my other peppers that I started early at the right time. These are only gonna be out here for like an hour, but those all along there will be here all day, my cold hardy stuff. These are all the plants off of my seed starting station. I do want to get another round of more plants going, but I'm also torn between just starting them outside and then bringing them in at night if there's a chance of frost, just so that they can get stronger stems and get used to the wind, because the wind is really whiplashing these other plants that I have, and they're looking kind of sad. I think they'll be okay. Just because the plants that I've started ahead are not looking like amazing, that doesn't mean they're gonna produce crappy fruit. In fact, I've done this almost every year, and almost every year I still get a ton of tomatoes. Plants are forgiving, and don't be afraid of any little failure, because then you'll hate gardening. There's always plants that die, and that doesn't mean that you've failed. In fact, you've learned something. What I've learned is that my tomatoes can make it through this. I would prefer not to do it, so I need to really learn next year to wait to start my tomatoes. Success isn't about growing a perfect garden. Success is when you keep trying. I want you to know that, and I want my kids to know that. I want them to see me trying. I want them to see my failures and to see me try through those failures and not let those stop me. That is what I want them to know, and you to know. We need to normalize trying and then failing, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. That's how we think, oh, I can improve on my own system and make something even greater. I'm not gonna let mistakes or failure stop me. If you wanna see when I first started these seeds, go ahead and click here.